In a time when social media is flooded with pictures and videos of empty shelves from all across the nation, Goldman's head commodities strategist, who's one of the most respected analysts on Wall Street, is saying that the extensive shortages faced by global commodity markets are simply unprecedented. We have a lot to discuss, so don't forget to leave a thumbs up. Please subscribe, turn on the notifications so you don't miss future videos. Now, in a recent interview with Bloomberg TV, Currie revealed that global markets are incredibly tight from a physical perspective and warned on shortages of many commodities. "I've been doing this 30 years. I've never seen markets like this," Currie said on Monday. "This is a molecule crisis. We're out of everything. I don't care if it's oil, gas, coal, copper, aluminum, you name it, we're out of it." The strategist highlighted a super backwardation in markets, something which looks like declining prices on the futures curve but signals that people are pulling commodities out of inventories. In essence, that means commodities are in so short supply right now that they're being taken out of reserves to ease the impacts of recent shortages on industries all over the planet. Right now, global traders are having to pay premium prices to ensure immediate supplies. And even though prices are declining on the futures market, on global markets, commodities are currently so undersupplied that prices have been rising aggressively, which is causing a worldwide slowdown in production. At this point, the shortage of virtually everything is translated into record price increases all across the board, according to Bloomberg's Bloomberg Commodities Spot Index, which tracks the costs of 23 different energy supplies, metals, and crops. This extraordinary surge is being driven by soaring oil prices, which have hit the highest level since 2014, with the benchmark Brent crude oil rising as high as $94 today, assuring even more pain at the pump. On top of that, diesel prices have just seen the strongest growth since 2008, and all of the 6 main industrial metals traded in the global metal exchange market have recorded acute price increases over the past month, Bloomberg reports. All of this chaos on global markets is affecting an overwhelming majority of U.S. businesses, which are already under extreme stress due to the new virus outbreak, due to labor shortages, and due to other supply chain bottlenecks. In addition to paying more expensive prices for commodities and raw materials, a report released this week by the Goldman Sachs 10,000 Business Voices Group found that 97% of U.S.-based businesses are reporting operational difficulties given the perfect storm plaguing their production. The survey exposed that 89% of business owners say that labor constraints are impacting their bottom line. Nearly 84% have been struggling with inflation and widespread price increases, with 76% of those respondents noting that higher prices are having negative impacts on their financial health. Meanwhile, shortages of materials and parts have led 37% of U.S. businesses to temporarily close or scale back operations. Jessica Johnson-Cope, chairwoman of the Goldman Sachs 10,000 Businesses Voices National Leadership Council and president of Johnson Security Bureau in New York, highlighted that the continuing impacts of the health crisis are putting many U.S. businesses on the edge of a financial abyss. She said, approaching the second anniversary of the onset of the virus outbreak, it is abundantly clear that small business owners across the country are facing more challenges than ever and simply cannot catch a break, Johnson-Cope said in a statement. The relentless pressures to pivot brought by this never-ending crisis, coupled with the difficult labor market, inflation, and supply chain constraints, are all pushing U.S. businesses to the brink. The Goldman Sachs survey was conducted between January the 10th to the 13th and included almost thousands of business owners from 48 states. The report also detailed supply chain stalls and slowdowns, which are continuing to add pressure on every sector of the U.S. industry. 68% of respondents reported concerns with ongoing supply chain challenges, and 69% say new disruptions have negatively impacted their business revenue. In response, the Goldman report authors characterized the ongoing supply chain nightmare as extremely troubling for the global economic outlook. On a separate note, Goldman analysts reported that 66% of small business owners say they've been facing problems with suppliers who are favoring large businesses over small companies due to the volume of orders. That's why most small business operators are pessimistic about relief coming anytime soon, with only 13% expecting supply chain interruptions to subside in the next 6 months. This new data clearly shows that the economic headwinds created by the health crisis are stronger than ever and keep hitting Main Street hardest, pointed out Joe Wall, National Director of Goldman Sachs' 10,000 Businesses Voices, in a statement. Altogether, more than 90% of study participants, which included board members and leaders in the supply chain and procurement departments, report that raw material prices have risen significantly compared to a year ago. At least 45% of these companies have recently been unable to operate at full capacity due to the lower supply of raw materials. In a note about the latest disruptions, Lecat, a managing director at Inverto, said, in the short term, companies cannot escape rising prices. You can't beat the world market, and this crisis affects everyone, both internationally and the direct competitors. The most important thing businesses can do right now is to secure supplies in order to maintain delivery capacity. However, it's safe to say that not all of them will be able to restock their inventories and afford premium prices. Almost 76% of all respondents expect strong growth in raw material costs throughout the whole year. So far, prices for aluminum rose 48% compared to a year ago, the same as iron, steel, and plastics. Paper rose 40%. Copper, 36%, chemicals, 27%, electricity jumped 27%, oil prices increased 23%. The consequences of shortages and price hikes for small businesses are threatening their survival. Within 6 months, hundreds of thousands of U.S. small businesses may be bankrupt, but conditions have gone so out of control that some big names are suffering as well. For instance, due to the scarcity of metals, parts, and semiconductors, major automakers have been severely impacted. According to one estimate by the US-based consulting firm AlixPartners, the global chip shortage will cost the auto industry $210 billion this year. Last week, Ford announced that the worsening shortage is hitting the company's production numbers, which is forcing it to halt operations in several plants across the U.S., Canada, and Mexico. Ford joins many other automakers and tech companies facing the same issues, including Tesla, Apple, and Sony. But the scarcity of chips has hit a wide cross-section of industries, causing backlogs of orders for products that go way beyond vehicles, but also consumer electronics and household appliances. Moreover, the shortfall of raw materials is also wreaking havoc in the construction industry. Building suppliers are finding it impossible to get their hands on basic materials such as plywood, lumber, and exterior and interior cladding, which is resulting in long delays that are doubling build times. Combined Building Supplies Cooperative Chairperson Carl Taylor said that the delays were the result of increased demand as residential building consents hit record highs, a scarcity of labor needed to make the materials, and a shortage of the materials needed to make specific building products. He said, "If we can't get the materials, we can't work, plain and simple." Home builders also can't find steel, or copper, which is aggravating the shortage of 5.24 million homes needed to meet the demand of this year's buyers. The National Association of Home Builders reported that in 2021, more than 90% of builders reported delays and materials shortages. The low inventory is driving up housing prices and reducing affordability across the nation. Redfin chief economist Darryl Fairweather told Insider, "When inventory is low, the market becomes more competitive, leading to bidding wars that drive up housing prices." But that's not the only distortion caused by the imbalance between supply and demand that industries and markets have been experiencing. According to Yossi Sheffi, the professor of engineering systems at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology and director of the MIT Center for Transportation and Logistics, it'll take a lot of time to stabilize global supply chains and to mitigate shortages. However, the distortions caused by this upsurge in consumer demand and product shortfalls are paving the way for a breakdown in the global industry. The expert argues that the current shortages are a symptom of broader market dynamics that are setting the stage for a significant recession. Sheffi says a key driving force is the well-known supply chain phenomenon called the bullwhip effect. Sheffi continues, as today's product manufacturers struggle to keep up with demand, as well as unrelenting supply uncertainties, they often overorder, assuming that only a fraction of their orders will actually be fulfilled. They also assume that current demand will continue and grow. The next link in the supply chain, perhaps a parts distributor, receives the inflated order, inflates it further, and passes it to a Tier 1 supplier. The Tier 1 supplier does the same, as do all the other suppliers. By the time the order reaches small sub-tier suppliers deep in the supply chain, it has become grossly proportioned. Orders that are far in excess of what buyers need are sometimes referred to as phantom orders, he explains. But when demand eases, companies will be left with inventories of products they can't sell and parts they can't use. The situation will aggravate further as companies stop ordering. This is especially detrimental for smaller suppliers at the end of the supply chain that lack the financial strength to ride out a steep fall-off in demand and the cost burden of unsold inventory, he added. In these circumstances, many enterprises will fail, thereby deepening the recession, as happened in the 2007-2008 global financial meltdown, Sheffi warns. We have many signs that demand is already cooling off. As inflation roars and people's purchasing power shrinks, recessionary forces are gaining steam, and the coming hike in interest rates will accelerate this downward trend even further. There's also plenty of historical precedents that points that the bullwhip effect changes sentiment in the markets and has the power to rapidly spark a meltdown. In short, this means that companies should beware of the underlying causes of these shortages fueled by the bullwhip effect, because at any moment, markets can react and remove financial support. That is to say, business owners should start preparing for the worst, while consumers should brace for a very turbulent year.